Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our evening of poetry under the Sturgeon moon. And we have some people still coming in, so I'm going to wait for just a couple of minutes before we get started. And then I will introduce myself and everybody else. And I just want to say that it's just probably a good thing that we didn't plan this under the Sturgeon moon outside with a microphone, because it's raining. At least it's raining at my house. So thank you all for coming. This is really wonderful. And we're really looking forward to this. My name is Susan Howe. I'm the president of the Truro Historical Society, and I want to welcome you all to this webinar called Under the Sturgeon Moon. And I want to thank you all for your support and let you know that this program is being put on by the Truro Historical Society. And the Truro Historical Society manages the Highland House Museum and the Cobb Archive. And between the two of them, we try to do our best to honor and preserve the history of Truro and to record the history of Truro going forward, since history is happening all the time. This webinar is free, but we would be very grateful if you'd like to make a donation. And if you want to do that, you can do that on our website. And I'm not sure that I even set that up yet, but I will. After this is over, I'll make sure it's done. So along with your donations, we also really appreciate memberships, because our members are people that we can count on year after year to help support the program and the programs that we do. And they get special things like being able to come to the Highland House Museum or the Cobb Archive as often as they want. And they're invited to special member events. And we have a discount for members at the museum store. And our members and our donors and our volunteers all work together to carry on the mission of the Truro Historical Society. And we have one employee right now, and the rest are volunteers. So I think that shows you how important our volunteers are, because without us, where would we be? So tonight we are going to have a poetry reading, and we're going to go from one person to the next. We're going to start first, though, with Rosalind Pace, who's just going to make a couple of introductory comments. And then after the reading, we will open it up so that if anybody has questions or comments about any of the poems or anything else along the theme, they can do that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Rosalind Pace.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And thank you so much to the Truro Historical Society. And, you know, really, what a brilliant idea for the Historical Society to sponsor poetry readings. You know, it just seems to me to be a wonderful thing. One thing I learned about, you know, I tried to learn some things about sturgeons, and the name actually means stirrer, you know, stirrer, because when they eat, they kind of stir up. And I thought, okay, that really fits, you know, doesn't it? That we can stir things up. And I just want to mention that one of our poets, Liz Bradfield, was unable to be with us here tonight. And although her good wishes and support is wafting in the air around all of us. And so here's a shout out for Liz. And we miss you. And actually, in our hearts, you really are here. So the first reader then will be Keith Althaus.
Thank you. Thank you. This first poem is called Murmuration. And a murmuration is synchronous flying by starlings mostly. Thousands and thousands of starlings. It's very. There was a thing in the New York Times recently, and I think you can go to YouTube and just press a thing and see these. It's an incredible sight when you see this. Anyway, this is Murmuration. The murmuration of starlings in the air above the bus station in Rome brought huge crowds every night at dusk to see them swirl and dive and tumble and erase themselves like an Etch-a-Sketch. They are not here for our entertainment or even study, bordering on the spiritual, mystical side of things, but to obey the primordial command of magnets under the road, on the rooftops of garages, in the core of great machines, cold and dark, and called immobile, but in reality, traveling with us at enormous speed. We are waiting for our Damascus Road, I am Tanya moment, as a shadow climbs the whitewashed stairs. Now this second poem, I can't help you with too much if people from Philadelphia or that area will know about this. And this happened last two summers ago, I guess, in the summer of George Floyd. It's one of the great sights of modern photography. You see this giant crane lifting this thing. And at the end is about the Pope. That's Pope Benedict Ratzinger. And he took a special interest in trying to clear up the language, I think, and confusion. There's some confusion about limbo as a place. On the removal of the statue of Frank Rizzo from Center City, Philadelphia. A scene out of the post-war Italian cinema, sailing over the city at midnight, trussed up and lifted, leaning forward like a figurehead, minus the boat. The larger-than-life statue of Frank Rizzo, mayor of Philadelphia, the cop who yelled, "Vote white," now ordered removed by the city council and the mayor's office from its base in City Hall Plaza to an undisclosed location and temporarily in limbo, a place even the Pope is not sure exists. And this poem is called, for lack of a better title, Notes from a Party. I'm stuck, having allowed myself to drift into this corner, a lazy backwater, away from the center stage, where the double-edged swords, career and gossip, hack away at each other and accidentally destroy the gorgeous haze of perfume and smoke. Up against a bookcase, reading sideways, names we knew before they climbed these spines and became voices of a generation. I almost expect to see tiny archers leap from the crenellated tops of books and pierce us with reminders of our calling. I would like to hear a poem now. Feel its weighted line in my palm, like a sudden order. Stay where you are. The paper trembling like an origami bird unfolding, becoming again a wrapper of gum. My drink done long ago. Last friend moved away, lost or fallen backwards, like one who stops on the sidewalk to tie their shoe, becomes an eddy in the dream. Let the questions begin, already paired to a great few. The problem of evil, original sin, and if no other, the place of pain in the universe. Are we talking now, or is this just an echo chamber? If devils walked on earth, not just hurt children, but pure evil, instead of victims, would it be easier? Could we then at last untie the simplest, hardest, tear-soaked knot? I should go. The party is reaching its zenith, loud, high-pitched drone. And I haven't yet found out why I came. I should go through a sea of bobbing faces, eyes on the door. I shall make my goodbyes. The next reader is Marjorie Block.
Thank you, Keith. That was a beautiful poem. The first poem I'm going to read is Under a Sturgeon Moon. I love sturgeon, smoked on a bagel with cream cheese and a slice of onion. I like that its scientific name, Accipenser transmontanus, means fish on the other side of the mountains. That the line sounds like a koan and is taught with possibility. That archaic creatures born armored and strong 200 million years ago swim today in the waters of Ukraine and Russia. That Joel Russ, born in Poland more than a century ago, crossed the Atlantic to sell sturgeon out of a barrel on the streets of New York. His business grew, his family grew. 3 daughters came to be known as the Sturgeon Queens, and like the sturgeon, resilient. Russ and daughters still there. A little shop, 179 East Houston Street, known for the quality of its smoked sturgeon. Today, close to the end of another summer, the sturgeon moon welcomes the coming harvest, the fire inside of us, the desire to see what's on the other side of the mountains. Next poem goes back a ways, and it's called Passage. After the first summer, you learn to pick the peas young and often. Cook the rice for 17 minutes to ensure the separateness of each grain, perhaps the certainty of something. The end of a long marriage and the beginning of solitude that surprises, like the echo of a buoy far offshore. You learn during that first autumn, the rhythm of the days will slip inside you. So you sleep early and wake early and observe that a few cold nights quicken the browning of the leaves. And when they're gone, the moon illuminates the bare limbs black across the snow. For the third poem, I decided to hand it over to Dorian Locks for her wonderful poem, Moon in the Window. I wish I could say I was the kind of child who watched the moon from her window, would turn toward it and wonder. I never wondered. I read dark signs that crawled toward the edge of the page. It took me years to grow a heart from paper and glue. All I had was a flashlight, bright as the moon, a white hole blazing beneath the sheets. Thank you. And our next reader is the now famous John Bonani.
Thank you, Marjorie. And thank you, Susan, for putting this together. And such a pleasure to read with Keith, Marjorie, Marianne, Rosalind, Patrick, and Margaret again. First poem I'm going to read is called Will. Will. Willed you back, but only part of you came. Will not forget the fire you built for me on a cold September night. Your furnace, so willed it on back, only some will float through. Your whole stitch straps to the back, slide it through my shoulders, left, then right. We'll fasten again, we'll return. So say again, will you come back? A lot of my poems a lot of my recent poems deal with ACT UP history and the aftermath of AIDS on individual development and the messaging of AIDS on childhood development. But this one is for an activist, Stephen Cordova, who after Bowers versus Hardwick was the Supreme Court case that upheld homosexuality within the sodomy laws, and that was passed in 1988. It wasn't repealed until the early 2000s. So Stephen was part of the direct action that took place after that. He was an ACT UP member. Coalesce. What were they going to do to us? Run us over? Because this action was supreme, because they had dragged each other across concrete in preparation, because Gayton, because Jeffrey, because the tight plastic handcuffs. Neil, a Fed with a camera. 2. Because in a basement garage, their rented bus parks, and because the buses of the other groups caravan behind, and because they were pinching the window levers and snapping up panes in a song of unison just minutes before saying, I can't wait to pee, and how much longer? And because up the windows went an exhale from the long 95 South highlight, New York to DC, they opened the door to squint. The white light shot like cannons from motorcycles and circled and grind and pitched revs. 3, I don't kneel. And despite all the practice, the only person resisting the cops not dealing with me well, a tensed muscle thrashes the grip. My affinity group really coalesced around me, body forward, body backward, to make sure that I was okay. And now a click notches the pinch of plastic cuffs. And now a large glass elevator ascends through a federal prison. Now it passes 5 black men in a chain gang. And this, the Supreme Court. And this wrist singed. And this one. And this again. And the last one I'm gonna read is called On Saving the Old Bouquet. On saving the old bouquet. Lately, a child whose heart is so full, they arrive to school opening their mouth and spilling from their lips the whole floral section of Stop and Shop. We cup the flowers in our hands and shirts. I help dust the petals. Each rose is a memory flaking. Lately, an adult who looks at the time on his phone, then uses its light to walk by. His footsteps are ticking. His heels kick up hourglass sand. He looks back and back and back again, as though searching for Lot's wife, his mother, forever Sodom's salt. Lately, we blow into our mugs. It is wine, but no one deserves to know this. Pinot, me and you. I use Scotch tape to hang a tea string from the lips of our vessels. They dangle like 2 sunrises. Lately, the sun stays hanging in the air and guilting us all into play. Lately, I play. The rules are broken, the sun rays disenthralled. If I miss the dead too much, they follow me into my dreams, pulling out chairs in their kitchens. Over coffee, over tea, they sing, spill, spill the petals all over your precious tile floors. They harmonize like Simon and Garfunkel. They flop through pages and pages of their diaries. They open a window and let the pollen in. Up next, I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Marianne Larkin.
Thank you, John. That was wonderful. To the old Chinese poets, I don't really need you to know me, but I would like to know you. Not personally, of course, but to know the place where your poems come from. I can imagine it, but that seems presumptuous. Maybe getting to know anyone is presumptuous, and you're 1,000 years ago. But all the same, you're always coming and going and grieving, just like we do, and falling in love and dying. I feel a shy kind of love for you, writing out your heart so long ago, just like we do. I do notice you seem to make love simple. You don't write about it going away. It's the lover, not the love, that leaves footprints in the green moss. That speaks of a kind of constancy. You love the names of your places. So do we. It means a lot to love a place, bigger somehow than loving a person. Chokan, Kutoyen, Chofusa, Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Savannah. Can you hear mine as I hear yours? Billow Ease, Fearwell Gorge, the River Kyang. Change of heart. I thought this was going to be a poem about dentures. My cousin Dina's bubbling happily in her Pepto-Bismol pink bathroom at the family reunion. Or even Tony Bradley's abandon on the lid of his toilet tank in a gray bathroom, which matched the waving stalks of fungi rooted unhappily in his no longer pristine night guard. But the poem had a change of heart after I read a whiny poem which pissed me off. As a little girl Catholic, whining was such an unknown in my mother's house that even when I became a grown-up ex-Catholic, whining stayed in the same class as Tony Bradley's night guard. So when Savina, an ex-Catholic girl who also never learned to whine, popped her chemo pills and dodged her Sicilian husband, we went partying in Cleveland, a city of clouds and no hope, where people soaked their dentures quietly and waited for August. But Savina and I stormed forth in midnight snow to eat falafel and hummus at Tommy's, polka in a Croatian bar, and hang with Sid Gold in Irv's all-night deli, discussing Italian opera. And though Sid's dentures slipped now and then, we, Savina and I and Sid, once even broke into La Donna Mobile. This is a different tone. Ode to sadness. Praise our sadness tonight, settling like a wild bird filled with grief, a bird on a branch above the world, singing sadness, calling us to it. Come, the bird sings. Let us make a song of sadness. No one will be alone. Do not fear. Oh, my friends, it sings, do not fear. There is no good news. We will sing of no good news. Nothing will be hidden, and still we will sing of sadness. Praise it, my friends, and the cloud it comes from. How beautiful it is, how inexplicable, how it makes us more than we are or hope to be. Next after me is Roz Pace.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Okay, the first poem I'll read is part of a series I'm doing on the Jamestown colony. It's an ancestral connection, but anyway, it also is, I suppose, a way of rewriting history or making history a little more accurate. And this is called The Starving Time, 1609 to 1610, Jamestown. That year of drought, no sturgeon in the river, no berries in the woods, the water contaminated, no bread, only tobacco, dried up fields, Irish pennies thrown in the waterless well. From 500 striving or contentious souls, only 60 remained, skeletal, hollow-eyed, taut sinews of rage. A few miles down the coast, a few lords, knights, and rich mariners feasted on oysters and pride, unable to imagine what they had abandoned. Okay, this is a bird poem, and it began for me with an article a couple years ago in the New York Times, which said that 2.9 billion birds have vanished from North America since 1970. Bird poem. Crows circled the house when my father died. Crows circled the house when my mother died. Crows fly into more poems than any other bird. Harbinger, shapeshifter, wizard, kin. Emily says hope is the thing with feathers. Hope flies in uneasy air, and words weave nests of terrifying gratitude, losses, endless. Did you know Mozart's starling alit on his head whistled the motif from Concerto in G and was beloved? One starling. My granddaughter, after she was adopted, collected bird feathers, mostly gull and tern. She made nests all over the yard, the porch steps, the sofa. At night, she nested toy animals around her as she settled into sleep, humming. In the morning, wild turkeys sometimes perch on my roof, talking quietly among themselves. I call the moment blessed if a hummingbird appears, a miniature eruption of whir and hover, its slender beak deep in a flower's center, its heart beating 1,200 times a minute. At night, its heart at rest in a slow beat, keeping its steady time. Sometimes I hear a whippoorwill. Sometimes from fitful sleep, I wake and hear a saw-whet owl. I used to hear bobwhites. I called back to them. I am trying to learn more about how to belong in this world. For each leaf, bird, and soul there is, repeat after me. To nest, to love, to keep. And I'm going to read a poem by a very famous poet who was definitely part of the history of Truro and whose voice still rings in many of our ears. And this is On Flowers on Negative Evolution by Alan Dugan. When the front end loader ran over my wife's Montauk daisies, I wanted to tell the driver, Butch, a nice kid, but couldn't. No flowers, no us. Flowers are basic to human life. That's why we think they're beautiful. No flowers, no seeds. No seeds, no greenery. No greenery, no oxygen. We couldn't even breathe without them. Also, no greens, no grasses. No grasses, no herbivorous animals, no animals, no beefsteaks. There wouldn't be anything to eat except fish, and no way to breathe unless we went back to the ocean and redeveloped gills. There, the seaweeds would make oxygen by flowering underwater, the way it used to be in the old days, and you would be running over them in your submarine. This is why flowers are thought beautiful, and this is why it's important not to destroy too many of them carelessly, and why you could have been more careful with my wife's goddamn daisies. Okay. The next reader will be Patric Pepper.
Thank you, Roz. And thank you, Susan, and the Historical Society for having us to read. I'm going to read 3 poems. They all have something to do with August. The action all takes place for these poems in the month of August. Number 6, Sherman's Circle. In this, my 70th year, like a time traveler from a grade B movie, I wander back to a few months before they married in 1943 to her very own room in a house full of young women, working women all, at number 6 Sherman Circle. I watched the 2 of them mount the steps to her front door. I watch her rifle her purse for the key. I see them feverishly in love. Oh, find the key. This Tuesday afternoon, everyone at work. They at the most important work of all. And when she finds the key, she turns to him and they embrace, soon to be true lovers, the 2 of them smoldering like the bodies of Bergman and Bogart, as if they are one, which they are. Watch her pull the door and lock it shut. Watch them mount the last staircase into their very own room, and she locks the ultimate door, their love tingling, having flourished into lust. I watch them undo each other, the 40s dress, blue and white, with modest shoulder pads, left on the seat of the straight-back chair, his army greens thrown on the back of the chair in this my 70th year. Her stockings of ever-straight seams draped over his jacket, his spit and polish shoes dropped, his tie tossed, and soon, at last, they embrace, naked as naked gets. I watch them fall into the narrow bed, pull each other into the wide, forgiving, fiery, demanding twin bed to join forever. Now, in the lust which is their love. This first afternoon of their proper life, tongue to tongue, red nails through his hair, his hands inching down her back. They cleave, he and her, she enveloping him, before her housemates return on the bus from downtown, as American bombers practice in the sky in this, my 70th year. This poem is called Gladiolas. It's in memory of Harry Bogdos, and it wouldn't write itself without the F word. Gladiolas. Since Harry died, my summer days at the Cape have been very ordinary. Today I drank tea, read the news, vacuumed the house, took my vitamins, and then for excitement drove to the Truro transfer station and shot the breeze with I don't know who. Back when, I'd usually walk down the road to check on Harry. I'd knock and he'd shout, come in, come in. And we'd sit in his kitchen, solve every mystery of World War II, eat Dove ice cream bars, and curse. There was something about cursing that Harry loved, but only with me. He would never use the F word with anyone, especially with, as he put it, the ladies. He would, but with us, it was fuck this and fuck that. And then we'd chortle with adolescent joy. Since Harry died, it really has been fuck this and fuck that. But I don't mind so much. Harry gave us his painting of a great pot of gladiolas just 3 months before he died, because Marianne asked him if we could buy it. His artistic eye was steady, his composition informed by the golden ratio, and color to die for, says Marianne. So these days I drink tea and look at Harry's gladiolas and go to the dump, and most days curse a little for you know who. Yeah, fuck this, and yeah, fuck that, since Harry died. And this last poem is called Song. All winter we have waited for May, as bright as when, yet brighter than when, the doctor carted away our cataracts and we could see again. For June, this escalating shades into coolness to be reminisced. And for July, to crack the sun over Earth's cast iron pans. For encounters, slack jaws, slovenly kisses, grins, and too much sun. Now the invisible saws at nightfall, August. Heads begin to fall off as August pins back the flaps on a darkness of sycophantic crickets. We swear in murmurs and feel for a small cottage sailing the dunes. All winter we've waited, really, for September's revival, when cattails stand like odds and ends, rattle through the marsh with unflustered wind, which too relieves our own tremblings as we perceive September for what it is, a chill, a long turn toward dusk. Soon, jack-o'-lanterns to escort us forward, feasts, candles to cheer fragrant evergreens toward infinities of light. All winter we've waited for winter. Our last reader will be Margaret Phillips. You're muted, Margaret.
How's that?
Good.
Thanks to Susan and the Historical Society, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much. I'd like to read 2 poems, both for my mom, who loved animals and who died at 98 in May. The first one is on an Egyptian clay model of 4 cattle found in a grave at Abydos near Luxor, 3500 BC. I could hold on to one of these horns if in death my underworld floods like the Nile as I venture into the new place. The dark eyes of cattle would not be afraid. That would help. And after death, if I have my hands, the smooth backs and sides of 4 cows might soothe me. Cow effigy is in my coffin. Yes, I can go with that. Long ago in this life, I had long conversations with a few cows. I don't remember those conversations now, but I remember Cora and watching her watch me as she followed my voice. She seemed to say, mm-hmm, in reply to my thoughts. I watched her drink water from the cowyard trough. She and all the cows pulled in big gulps, and I thought, I was 8 or 9. It must taste wonderful to want so much and to drink so long. The cows I knew as a child were careful where they put their feet and protective of their calves. Cows have kind eyes. They are patient. Standing next to a loved cow is standing in peace. The Egyptian man who died 3,500 years ago had them buried with him to provide for himself in his new world. He wanted cows. And this last poem, the name is My Mother Comes Back as a Cooper's Hawk. Recently, a Cooper's hawk has been swooping our backyard hunting small birds and mammals. I did not realize she was mother until she landed on our skylight in late afternoon on July 7th, one day after she would have turned 99. But it was Mom, a presence of no talk, all action. Only 2 months before she died, she told me she wanted to be cremated. This was a surprise. For years, she had said cremation was not for her. She wanted to be buried next to my father. Why cremation? I asked. Why the change? I want to be free, she said. I want to be free. I thought of her bent over body, her pain that had lasted so long, and now she is free. Free to go and come as she pleases, free to stretch and use her body again, and in the body of a hawk, free to climb into the sky and soar and see and be. And free to come to the roof of my house, far from her former home, and visit me, where I live with Jill and where we reared our family, a place she long avoided because she was angry and afraid of Gay. But now she's free to grasp the skylight screen with her strong talons and free to peer down into the house and see me on the sofa in the loft watching politics on TV and doing a crossword puzzle. I was so happy to see her in her new body covered with white and tea-colored feathers, perfectly tailored as she loved to be, seeking to see and understand, curiosity brimming her stern, fierce eyes. She cocked her head and shifted her weight foot to foot, looking down at what was looking up at her. For a moment, she walked to the top of the skylight screen, leaving only her tail visible. And then she walked down the screen to look again at my face tipped up to her. Above her, fading blue with thin clouds in the wind. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to return this to gallery view. I forgot to mention before that if you want to ask a question or make a comment, you should use the Q&A section. On my computer, there's a whole bunch of different options that you can have on the bottom of the screen, and Q&A is where you should put your comments if you have any. In the meantime, does anybody have any comments they want to make about each other's work?
This was so healing. I'm so happy that you guys put this together. I really loved everyone's work, and it was such a gift to hear.
Thank you. Oh, there's one right now. Let's see. Bill Charette says, brilliant all. Thanks so much. And thank you. Anyone else have any?
Thanks, Bill.
Go ahead, Rosalind.
Oh,
Any
No,
other comments? No?
no, I just wanted to say thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
And glad
Well,
you clicked in.
I thought this was wonderful too, and I'm just making sure that I'm not missing anything. I just wanted to comment that I forgot, besides the question and answer thing, I forgot to mention that there's a lot of things going on at the Highland House Museum this summer and for the rest of the season. And let me think, what's the most important thing to say? We're running a silent auction. It is called the Highland House Shingle Auction. And many of you know that the Highland House has been under a restoration for the past 5 years. And now the restoration is all but complete, except for the punch list that still is bothering everybody. And so the shingles were taken by various artists and community members, and they've created works of art from them, and they are up for auction, and the auction is almost over. On Friday at 6 p.m., the auction will be at an end. So if you want to see the shingles, there's 2 ways to do it. One is to go to the museum and see them hung in the lobby. And another is to go on our website and then connect with the auction. There's a link to the auction right there. So I think it's really cool because it's such a breadth of different ideas and kinds of creativity. And we're just so grateful that people want to help us to continue to run the Highland House Museum and the Cobb Archive for that matter. So that's happening. And then next week on Wednesday, we're having an in-person talk by Fred Gechter about the history of the Truro Conservation Trust, because they're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the first piece of property that they were able to acquire. So that's going to be at the Highland House Museum. And I can assure you that if you decide that you want to come, we have all the windows open and all the fans going. And it feels like a safe environment to me. So that's all I can say. It will be a week from today at 6:30 at the Highland House. And then over the weekend, we're having an art show. And we have a group of artists who, I think it started with a group that was all learning under the same teacher, and they've expanded it a bit. And these artists come and they set up a table and they hang up their work, and anything that gets sold, they give a donation of part of that to the Truro Historical Society. So that's another way that we can raise funds for all of our work. And so besides that, the only other thing I want to say is that we love our volunteers. I think I might have mentioned that everybody's a volunteer almost. And we would love to have more. So if you're interested in volunteering, please let us know, because there are other things. A big group of our volunteers are docents, and they come to the museum for a half day a week maybe, and they meet the people who come in, and they give tours, and they show various things about what's presented at the Highland House. But there are a lot of other ways to contribute also. So if you're not into that kind of contribution, there are plenty of other ways to do that. So that's all I had to say. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to comment?
I just wanted to say that it was really a beautiful reading, and people write from their hearts. You know, it's really rare and beautiful. I'm very happy to be associated with everybody.
Thank you. Well, we are very happy to be associated with you. I believe this is our third or fourth poetry reading,
Who knows?
something like that. Fourth.
I have a question actually. Like Keith, you read that poem about Rizzo's The Falling of the Rizzo statue. Can you talk about like the connection, your connection to Philly? I'm Italian and I grew up in Philly, and I was so happy to see that happen. But I want to hear like what drew you to write the poem.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I grew up in York, Pennsylvania, which is 80, 90 miles down Route 30 from Philadelphia. And we always got like the Inquirer as a newspaper. And I wasn't there most of that time. It's the 70s and 80s, I think. But the scene, when you see it on the news, it first of all, it's just like one of those 1940s Italian movies, you know, that group, I don't know who they are all together, but it's just it's one of the few things that makes me happy, right? In the news, you just oh, you know, something good has happened. And I think people must feel that about the Confederate statues and so forth. But this was so unexpected. To me, it was, because I haven't kept up on, but this monstrous thing with his hand out like this, you know, it was 13 feet tall, and it just shows that after midnight, it was wonderful. And I don't know, I can cheer myself up anytime by just thinking about it, or going to the, you know, YouTube or something and seeing it lifted up again and gone who knows where. I don't know, it's heartwarming. Very positive news.
Thank you. I just realized that I probably should introduce my friend Tony, who's here from Paris, France, and Paris, Maine. And he's here to visit me for a few days. And I thought maybe y'all were wondering who he was. And then I wanted to say that there is a message here from Sonia Hunter. She says, thank you from Berkeley. She's Rosalind's daughter-in-law. And she says, no questions, just wanted to say hi and that I enjoyed the reading. So there you go.
Oh, thanks, Sonia. That's great.
All right.
From Berkeley, California.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us. All right. Any last comments before we close?
Wonderful to see everybody.
Yeah. And we'll do it again.
Mhm.
We'll have another webinar in the later fall, maybe, and meet again.
Thank you, Susan.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. And I'm sorry we couldn't do this under the Sturgeon moon. Oh, wait a minute. There might be some other comments. No. Guess
Well,
not.
Marjorie took care of that, see?
That's right.
Thank you.
So we have a sturgeon.
It's my pleasure.
That's right. That's right. Thank you very much, Marjorie.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate you bringing the moon with you.
It was beautiful. If you got to see it at all this week, it was amazing. It came out late in the night, but it was just brilliant.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording now. So I'll just say goodbye to all of our participants and thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hey,
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, you're all still here and you can chit chat if you want. I stopped the recording and I guess I can stop